Namaste and Vanakkam to all of you. Yeah. All right. Am I audible to all?
Yeah. Everybody is muted, so yeah. They are all showing the thumbs up.
I think that, yeah. Foundation and also Mridula, who runs the Global Parent Support Group, for having me here this afternoon, especially on a Saturday. I think most of the people will be working. You must have taken some time off to sort of attend this. So thank you for being here, and thank you for listening to me for the next probably half an hour, and then the question and answer session. I speak English, but I also speak very good Tamil because I read and write Tamil, and I grew up in Tamil Nadu. And actually, I speak good Tamil, not Chennai Tamil. And I also speak Kannada. So any parent who is not able to understand or would like to ask questions either in Kannada or in Tamil, we're welcome to ask questions, but that we would do a bit later. But I would request most of you to write your questions onto the chat box so that Mridula can actually moderate it. And I also request all the parents who are attending, to actually ask general questions, not only which will benefit your children and you, but all the parents who are here. At least, as I was telling Mridula, it should benefit at least 50% of the children or parents who are here. Very specific questions, I think I won't be able to take it because I'm not going to be doing very specific topics. What I'm doing is a very, very general thing of parenting, because I think it is very important. Often we think that we know, yes, we know a lot of things. At the same time, when it is given in a form which is sort of organized and goes through systematically, we get a feeling of, yes, that seems to be a very important issue. So that is what I would be doing mainly, and I would focus mainly on parenting. Okay. When you may say that, doctor, you said that you would be doing parenting and well-being. I think they are in a way intertwined. And when I talk about well-being, it is not only the well-being of the children or the offsprings, but it is also the well-being of the parents. I think both are equally important, and we need to remember that. All throughout our parenting process. I'll try and see whether I can share my more share screen. Okay, so I think this is the one. Can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can, doctor. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all of you, I do not know how many of you are attending as a couple and how many of you are attending as because your spouse is away at work or at something else which is more important. You get married, and then if you're a woman and if you're a man, your spouse becomes pregnant, and then you have a child, you become a parent. Okay, so, and then the parenting starts. Often why I talk about that is parenting is one process for which and one role where we do not have any training at all. Absolutely no training we have how to do parenting. But all of us become parents, including myself. I'm also a parent. So all of us become parents, and we think that we have the maternal instinct and the paternal instinct to be able to do that automatically, that all of us have an inbuilt capacity, innate capacity to do it. And the other problem in the current situation is often we do not have in the previous generation. For example, if I have to remember my grandparents, I'm sure my grandmother was the first child, and there would have been other children, at least 6 to 7 children. She would have mothered and looked after and parented, and she would have seen her mother parenting, and she would have parented to a certain extent her brothers and sisters. before she became a parent herself. And that would have been a joint family, and she would have seen her either her aunt or other people in the family, or a grandmother parenting other children. So they have first-hand experience of how to parent and how not to parent. And they also have some hands-on experience where they are not the total parent, but they have some experience on caring and disciplining and looking after and teaching before they become a parent on their own terms. So those experiences are not available to us today. But at the same time, when you bring a child into this world, the child is a person. The person doesn't come, though the person comes to this world all by herself or himself, but they are actually in an onion sort of an end circle, and they are like, I do not know how many of you know about the Kokeshi Japanese dolls, where you remove one, remove one, remove one. They are, there are dolls inside dolls. So our children are like that, and they are placed around what is the innermost child. The child is surrounded by the immediate family and the extended family. Though the extended family in today's world, and most of you may not have a grandmother or a grandfather or an aunt or an uncle living with you for the child, there will be an extended family over the net, over the phone, in visits. And then there is the neighborhood, your neighborhood. And in that neighborhood, your school becomes very, very important. And along with the neighborhood, I have put the culture, because the culture influences us, a lot. For example, if you have the culture of, every day in your family that, you would do prayers together, that becomes a culture of your family. Need not be the Indian culture, your own family culture. So that is very, very important, because there can be cultures in every family which are very healthy, at the same time not so healthy for a growing up child. So these are two important things which we need to sort of understand. And the larger thing of that all of you are parenting in India and in societies, for example, whether it is the Chennai, it is a metro, or it is a suburb area or a village area or the total country. And nowadays with this globalization, you have a lot of things coming into your living room, and that is the other larger, sort of an envelope which your child is growing. And for all these things, you would find that all these things are prospective, and they influence the child at every step of the milestone and growth. All right. So, but at the same time, your parenting is also, or has, is embedded in certain things. And that's what I was just telling you. And it is all retrospective. If you look at it, it is all past. So your own parenting style, because you as a person has grown up very differently. And then you would always remember how your parents parented you. And that would influence your own parental style, plus your own personality, what you are right and what you are right now. And then, of course, the culture in which you grew up, somebody's, I think the culture in which you grew up, and of course, the sort of other things which your child is growing, that also. So you would have learned a lot about how to parent. So for example, if you grew up in a village, that sort of a parenting has a different influence on you if you grew up in a city and had a very different sort of, and if you grew up in a nuclear family rather than a joint family. So everything makes a lot of difference. Or if somebody grew up in a hostel, boarding school, their parenting style would be very different than a person who grew up at home. So these are very, very important. And this is a past where it influences our present, and that present influences the future of your children. And this is something which we need to understand. If we do not become aware of it and we just do parenting because we think that we know, it's not going to be for the best for the child. Because there are different types of parenting styles. I'm sure many of you, when you Google it, you would have seen this. And these are, different types of parenting styles where somebody can be how much of control you provide, how much of warmth or acceptance you provide. So these are two different things, and they interact with each other. So the control and the warmth. And it can be, they can interact very well. And that is what we call, the best one is called the authoritative one, where the person controls very fairly, at the same time accepting, but provides limits and disciplines, but everything is fair, explains things, is consistent. Even if there is strictness at home, there are lots of things maybe no, but there is a fairness in everything. On the other hand, somebody could be very controlling and not very, showing a lot of acceptance and to the individuality of the child, what we say authoritarian. And many of you may say that, doctor, actually our parents, I wouldn't dare to talk against my father. So he was such an authoritarian. But what you need to understand is the parenting in those days was not restricted only to your father. Somebody else would have been there. So you would have had an opportunity to have other figures around you who were not authoritative, but only authoritarian, but authoritative. And then, of course, there are things like very permissive, no control at all, no discipline at all. So you allow everything, the children rule the rest, roost. And the other one is very neglectful. Unless somebody is in a very different situation, I often do not find Indian parents as very, and definitely not in this crowd, as very neglectful parents, where the child is on its own, neither is it accepted or provided warmth or not control. Permissive, there is no control at all. The children do whatever they want. And we would find that there is a mixture of everything, all the four, in all of us. So it is not that only one is there all the time. Depending upon the situation, we become, permissive or authoritative, authoritarian. But what is important is, what is your more than 50% of your parenting style? And you may say that, doctor, no, I think this is all Western, it is not in, because this is something which has been studied across culture. And there are any number of articles on the Indian parenting style. There are any number of articles on parenting styles in the Oriental culture, not only India, but also in communities like, China, Cambodia, Vietnam. So all these cultures which are very Oriental and family oriented, they also, sort of look at it. They may have their own definitions, but definitely the styles of parenting is very different. And that is something, in today's context, this has become very important, and you need to sort of examine yourself whether you are what sort of a parent you are, because that sort of helps you to understand that the children, the way you parent, it will always affect the way your children deal with emotions or their social skills or the way they feel confident about themselves. It's not a perfect fix. Just because you are an authoritative parent, that doesn't mean that it's all hunky and dory, because to say that also is very difficult, because what I say authoritative, you may feel it as authoritative. So we are because these are all emotional and behavioral, there can be a lot of difference of opinion, but at the same time, what we will try to say in the next slides we will describe what this means. The long and short of it is only what I have written at the lower one. I have a son, I have only one child, or I have only one daughter, or I have only one son and one daughter. I have to somehow make them successful in this life. That's my goal. That's my wife's goal or my husband's goal, my spouse's goal. Versus, you need to make them help them to become mature persons. If you do that, a lot of other things would sort of settle. You may say, oh, it is very good for a seminar to talk about it, but not so in true life. But you will see that later, that how it is very important. And I can say that it is very important in everybody. I'm not even talking for you. I'm also talking about myself because I have parented and I have gone through my own share of difficulties and successes and sort of tweaking it as I went along. So I think here I was always telling Nirmal, what age are your parents? What age are their children? Because I cannot be talking about parenting as one universal thing, because the need of a small child is very different from, 8 and 10 to 13, 15, 16. And in our country, we still parent 24, 25, 26, because they are still in engineering college, medical college, or, doing whatever, law, journalism, everything. So it depends upon the age of the offspring and the needs of the offsprings, because some people had very specifically asked, oh, my child is very restless. What do I do? My child is so shy. What do I do? This is what we say, the inner core temperament of the child. We need to understand the temperament of our children, because you would find that even, when children are babies, newborn babies, between your two children, you would find that there is so much of difference between them, because one child, when it is hungry, may, bring the roof down within, 10 days of birth. The other child may just whimper and then, draw the attention of the mother or the father. So what you need to understand is there is a core temperament of each child, how they deal with needs and challenges. And of course, the sibship is very important, because firstborn, secondborn, and in our country, the gender of the child is still very important, whether it is a boy or a girl, whether you're the second girl or the second boy. And most important, I would like to say, is your marital relationship. I think that is one factor I cannot stress more than again and again, because people always forget that, whenever they talk about parenting, the focus is on children. The focus is never on you. The focus is never on your relationship with your spouse. Okay, how can I fix my child? Is the question. The focus is never on, do I have a good partnership with my spouse to be able to deal with this sort of a very mega responsibility of parenting my child? Because all of you should understand, when a child, the demands of parenting are extremely high. So when you have one parent, and there are enough number of forums, where single parents come and say, I do the work of the father and the mother, and it is enormous. Here you have two parents, very good, because you have two figures to sort of help each other. But that totally depends upon how your relationship, how well you have prepared as a couple and a dyad to be able to deal with this, I should not say, with this, rebellious, difficult child. So that is very important, and often we forget that. So you need to sort of, let's look at the dyad now. Okay, I just wanted to show this because you would have seen in the types of parenting, there was one column about academics. And this is something which came out in 2018. And we stand the topmost in sitting with our children for academics. So it's very good. That's why we shine, and we are able to send our manpower to all corners of the world. But are we as successful as all the other people are in being a person? We are authority, sort of binding. Only when the authority is on our head, we do it. Many a times, the idea of us is to not to get caught, rather than I do it because it is good, because that is what is fair. So there is a difference in that. So very important, I'm just going to go to the next one. You look at that and you come to this. Probably I should talk a bit more about your marital relationship. Some families, equal. husband and wife, in true sense, not only in financial, everything, they are able to sort of take decisions in conversation with each other, support each other. They are complementary to each other. In some families, it is asymmetrical, but they work very well as a couple. So I'm not saying that equal partners are the best, I'm not at all saying that, because culturally also we often have asymmetrical families where the power is very, very different. But that doesn't mean they cannot be very well united couple as parents. But often you would find that people come from different families and different, sort of cultural setups and upbringing, and they still hold on to that and not willing to become a working reciprocal couple. That becomes the biggest issue in many of the parenting issues. If that sort of how does any relationship actually succeed? Any relationship is a very, very true reciprocal and mutually good relationship when somebody, not only in husband and wife, you take an employer-employee, you take a friend, you take a person who's a landlord and a tenant, husband and wife, you take any relationship, what you need are first, trust, absolute trust in the other person. In all issues, it could be sexual, it could be financial, in the commitment, everything. Absolute trust. The second thing which is needed in any relationship is respect. And you can say that, oh, in our family, having a few slaps is not considered disrespectful. No, that cannot be so. How can any time violence be respectful? So there needs to be, and it is not in the form of saying G or in anger or anything like that. It is more your attitude towards the other person and how you indicate or express that. So two things I have spoken about right now, so which is trust and respect. And a willingness to be reciprocal. If that is not there, and if you're going to, how you're going to communicate, if the communication is only functional, do you want food? Are you going out? I need some 1 kg of tur dal. If it is absolutely only functional between the husband and wife, there is no way they can come to a common ground about any parenting, because each one of them is doing a parenting on their own, and despite the parents, the children are growing. So, because many couple are just functional couple, they are stable, but they are not communicating. They do not have common agendas. They do not have common goals. They may have some values. Yes, most of us have values, but they do not stand on a common ground. And that's something which is very important. The man continues to a large extent. I'm not saying that we should forget our own parents and your relationships, but this dyad is very, very important to bring up children, especially in nuclear families. That's very important. You need to respect the other relationship, but have a very, very working relationship with your own husband or wife. If that is not there, children will grow up, and we take the credit for parenting them very well if they are, effective in work. And we say that, that's our destiny if they don't turn out that, according to your expectations. So that is something which we need to understand. So when we spend 12 hours a week for sitting with our children to be successful in academics, I think we have the ability to do a lot of other things where we can parent a child. So many of the other things are equally important, because people often say, my son is constantly on the cell phone. My daughter does not listen to me, argues with me all the time. She always compares herself with my son. Or my son constantly says that he has to yield in to his sister because she is a girl. So in a lot of these things, we need to understand that we cannot be treatment oriented. That is, when there is a problem with my child, either in the form of an anger or refusing or rebellious or difficult, then I will start thinking about what should I do to deal with this issue. Or if my child is not motivated to study, skip school, then I will start thinking about what should I be doing to address this. Now, parenting is a promotional program. Parenting is a preventive program. That is good parenting. If you're going to talk about parenting only when you have problems, no, that's not parenting. You have done a parenting. So being a parent is very different from parenting. Parenting is a continuous process. So let us look at some of these things. What you can do. Every family to parent a child should plan, should have waking and sleeping times. When I say this, it is not only for the children. I'll tell you a few examples of the types of parents I have met. Not even very long, not in consultations, not in therapy, but when I'm traveling. I was traveling from Chennai to Bangalore. I saw this mother with two children, a boy who is 8 years old and a boy who's 10 years old, full of energy. The whole time, you know that from Bangalore to Chennai, the train comes at, in the evening. So you have enough time. The whole time, I think it was not Bangalore, it is Bangalore to Trichy, because I spent a lot of time with those children. I was observing the children. The mother, except taking the food out and giving the children, whole time, she was on the phone, watching various videos, watching various probably podcasts, talking with people. Not a single moment she spent time with the children talking or requesting or showing anything. The children played. They were very well behaved children. They played among themselves. When they wanted something, they asked their mother, and they were very well behaved, and then they spread their own beds and then went there. That mother would later say, I parented my children, but I don't think she was ever parenting children. The same travel I have done from Bangalore to Chennai, there was this parent, father, who came with smaller children, a boy and a girl. And then he had brought in some food and also some playthings. And then he kept them occupied with, showing them things outside and inside. And then there was this fight about who should sit near the window came, because all seats were occupied and the children wanted to sit near the window. Only one child could sit because other child had no window seat. And then the father made it into such a game that he made it into as if sitting by his other side is sort of a gift. So the children took turns to sit on the other side because that was considered something very special. So they sat on that left side of the father for some time, played with him. Then they exchanged and went and sat near the window on the right side of the father for some time. And he kept them occupied throughout. And there were times when he was doing something on his own, reading something. But at the time, the children played, but he was there all the time. So he was like God, present here, now, when needed. So I could see the difference between the two types of parenting so obviously, because it is a responsibility. You have to do it. Somebody else will not do it for you. And for that, and if there was a mother and if they were constantly arguing, I cannot imagine how the children would have kept themselves occupied. So if the mother was equally in tune with the father to do this, I'm sure that would have been the whole family would have enjoyed the travel tremendously. So when I say about all these activities, it is for the whole family and not only for the children. You just cannot expect your son to switch off the phone and the TV at 8 o'clock, and you are watching till 10 o'clock, or watching T20 the whole night. That's not possible. How often do you eat together? And when you eat, do you talk about general things which are fun? Many parents take their children out to movies, to supermarkets, malls, and various other exhibitions. But are there activities where you sit and do as an active hobby, where your child cuts the vegetables, or you're doing sewing together, or you're playing a Monopoly together, you're playing a Chinese checker together, cards together, you run together, you cycle together. These are all activities which suddenly at the age of 12, if you ask your child to go for cycling with you, it will not happen. It should have been there for the first 11 years for you to say that, the child to say yes to you at the age of 12. Because you cannot wake up at the age of 12 and say, oh, the doctor said that, let's start going for cycling tomorrow. It needs much more effort there. A family that discusses together, that is very important, because I find communication is always to win an argument, to prove that I am right. The idea of discussions is not what is right, who is right, but rather than understand each other's perspective. Set limits for everyone appropriately. I can tell you another example. There was this lady who came to me and she said, my children never put their, I'm a working mother, my husband is also working. Every day I come back, I have 3 children, the shoes are all around the place, the books are all around the place, and they would have eaten some biscuits and the plates are not back in the thing. So we came to an agreement. What we will do is, thereafter, that anybody's things, they will have a big cardboard box. Anybody's things which are out of place for more than half an hour will automatically put by the other person into the card box, and the things will not come out of the cardboard for the next 24 hours. So the children started doing this because they were aware that if they there were times when the first son had to go without the mathematics book because it was in the cardboard. But the mother found that her things, her handbag was more often in the cardboard box than anybody else's. So when we set rules, we should know whether we are doing it to ourselves also. I've seen many families, because it is Sunday, the mother will wake up at 10 o'clock, the father will wake up at 2 o'clock, the children will wake up at 3 o'clock. So naturally, if you wake up at 3 o'clock, how will you go to bed at 10 o'clock? You will go to bed at another 3 o'clock. Families, Indian families are always families with values, but values are the goals. You need skills to go towards the values. So values are like your akara vadisal or upma. But to make that upma or that akara vadisal, you should know what you want and how to make it. So you should know how to light a stove, how to put a pan, how to boil water, how to sort something, how to cut vegetables. They are skills. And the skills in human behavior are ability to think analytically, reasoning, to make more and more choices when you have difficulties with one choice. And when the choices are made, to make a decision which is befitting that situation. And when there is a problem, to choose all these things and make a decision. To communicate with somebody very effectively without breaking relationship. You may have a conflict, but how to communicate without breaking the relationship, or even if you're breaking a relationship, how to get back without much problem. Understand the other person. Deal with your own, anger, sorrow, pain, stress. Understands your limitations and strength, and understand somebody else's limitations and strengths. And just because they are different from your views, not to foo-foo them. These are the skills people need, and they need. And when you have difficulty in teaching your child mathematics, you go to the if the child has difficulty in adding 62 by 70, then don't you now go back and then start with 3 plus 1 is 4. So you have to break it down into smaller steps and exhibit it for your children to learn it. If you do not do that and then just say, study well. When you say study well, your house, even if it is a 1-bedroom house, should have study time, and you should not be switching on the TV at that time, and you should be sitting and reading. When you say sleep time, you should sleep. So many a times, all these are what we are as role models. Role models are not, people like, Shashi Tharoor or Aishwarya Rai. Role models are each one our parent. And the last one, because some mother had asked, my child is very, shy. How do I make her socialize? How are you socializing as a family? Do you just go to mall and come back without talking with anybody? Do people come to your houses? Do you visit your in-laws? Do cousins come home? Do uncles and aunts come home? Do you go to your neighbor's house? Do you invite your neighbors and spend some time with them? Or you go only for Hashna and Kunkuma on a Dasara day? If you have been doing all these things, then your child will be very comfortable around people. If you have never done that and you go once a year only for Varalakshmi Puja day, the child will be behind your pallu only. If the child has to socialize, you need to socialize and have warmth and inviting attitude towards people around your thing. If you are constantly fighting with your mother-in-law and your sister-in-law or your brother-in-law and no cousins come home, how will the child have any socialization? So parenting is a very big process. According to me, it is the toughest job on earth. Sending man to the Mars, which Elon Musk or, to space and everybody is doing, that's much more easy, according to me. If somebody said, what is the toughest job on earth? It's parenting, according to me. Because I've gone through that. I know what it is to parent. So it is the toughest job. Being a parent and parenting are totally different things. Structure and routine are very, very important, and it should be child-centric. When I say child-centric, that doesn't mean you're giving everything to the child. No. Rules and disciplines are very important because it provides a sort of a limit setting, but it cannot be around the neck of the child also. It needs to be continuous and consistent. Many parents say, oh, enga amma appa enna eppadi adichirukanga theriyuma? Appa naangalla sariya pogaliya. That's what many parents say. But there was a consistency in that. And probably that father was very severe even towards himself. So it was all right for you. Okay, my father is severe with me and he's severe to himself also. So probably that went. Rights and responsibilities. I can take a separate, class on that. We think about the rights of the children, but never we give them responsibilities. Most children in our families, you study well. That's your only job. No other job. The child never participates in cleaning the house, helping the mother, helping the father. They don't have any assigned activities on a daily basis to them from childhood. From the age of 2 to 3, you can start giving your children responsibilities. But no parent does that in India because they think that doing that will disturb them, distract them from other things. No. Children need to work. Children need to have responsibilities. Children need to be told, every day I will tell you what I have spent, you sit and write. That's your responsibility. Models that are more realistic. I think I have talked about the support within the family, within your relatives, within your neighborhood, within your culture, within your society. Then you can think about, our children are now having socialization only through media, which is what is mental health is wrong, is everybody is shouting from the tallest building in the world. But we are saying, okay, set that right. But towards that, you have to do a lot of things to set it right. And if you're going to wake up only when there is a problem I'm sure what you're doing is shutting the gate after the cattle have actually gone out. I will stop here and then you can ask questions and then we can go, because some people may, since I'm very, very generally spoken, you can ask me questions and then we can take it up. 6:13. So I have spent about 45 minutes doing that. So a general parenting thing, if people could.
You can parents, you can type in the chat box.
I will stop my share. Yeah.
Can you start typing? When can we give money to kids and give them responsibility of money?
Is there an age? I do not know whether there is an age specific thing. You need to, first of all, you are asking two things. Children need to know how to handle money, definitely. So many a times, what you would do is that when you take your children for, along for shopping, they understand that money is very important to go and deal with things. And you also teach them currency value as a part of the education and everything. It depends upon whether your child, if the shop is nearby and your child is safe, the child is able to go and get, I have done it when I was 6 years old, because children understand definitely 6 and 7. But today, where is the opportunity for people to go and buy things on their own in any, because it's all supermarket. So when you say that you can give them, are you talking about pocket money? Is that what you're talking about?
Can you just type can you type your question, whether it is you're talking about pocket money? That's what the doctor is asking.
Are we talking about pocket money?
Shopping for themselves. So is it with their pocket money now, or are you specifically sending them to a shop to buy?
Hello. Can there be? Yeah. Hi. My question is regarding like in whole. Sometimes we tend to give pocket money, but sometimes we tend to give them money for saving. We tell them like, you did something good, so here we give you money for that, for you. And then sometimes we ask them like, you did a good job, now you can go and buy something for yourself with this money. So basically, handling of money and how they become responsible for it.
Okay. First of all, I have some difficulty in giving children money for good behavior. Okay. Often money is given and then they are expected to put it in either in a bank or in a piggy bank or something like that. Unless they are 13, 14 and all, just allowing them to buy whatever they want, because at the end of the day, you need to know what they did with that. They have their choices. So what I would say is, yes, you can give them. Responsibility is not giving away everything. See, for example, when you say that responsibility, you are a responsible member, mother of the family. That doesn't mean that if you're earning, that you do whatever you want with your money. That's not the way it is. Responsibility is being responsible.
I didn't mean. I didn't. No, I didn't mean like asking them to buy anything that they want. But
They
yes,
need to discuss with you.
yes.
They need to discuss
So
with you.
yes. No, basically with giving them choices.
Yes. They give
And that you yearn this. You have yearned this.
So earning comes a bit later, not for children who are very young, usually pre-pubertal children whom we say 8, 9, 10. So many a times children are given money by grandparents or people who visit in our culture. On a Diwali day, probably they are given on a holy day. And then when they accumulate that, and if they have been talking about wanting something, and then you think that it could fit into their pocket money, because I'm sure they are not going to earn a lot of money by saving these things. And if they are saved some 100 rupees or 200 rupees, then you can always discuss with them what can come in that, whether they want to buy 1 and 2. And if it is things to do with, whether they can share it with others. If it is something which, for suppose they buy a frisbee, everybody can share it. If they buy a ball, everybody can share it. On the other hand, if they buy something for themselves as a necklace or something like that, it's only them they are going to wear. So there is a need for discussion in the initial, because you are guiding, you are facilitating sort of what are the options, what do I want, what are the various things I want, what do I want right now, and am I able to fit it within my 100 rupees or whatever I have. So what is important is, according to me, is this is more important, the pointing out of the discussion and the skills, rather than actually going and buying. That is only a side product. And that shows that you are being responsible, because if you have done all these things and the child also agrees yes, and then you go help the child to go and buy it, the child over time will become a very responsible child of how to, whenever they have money, they know that they just cannot go and buy things impulsively. They need to think, make choices, and then choose one. And it should be within budget.
Doctor, can we go to the next question? It is, why is that the focus recently shifted to child perspective rather than a parent perspective or equal perspectives? Any suggestion on changing the trend?
Why is the focus recently shifted to the child perspective? Because this is a pendulum. This is always a pendulum. So the children were earlier thought of, actually in a lot of many times in our country, if you take 2 generations earlier, they never had a childhood. They, either the women got married very early, or the men were, sort of followed their parents into whatever work the parents were doing, into either agriculture or whatever was the family, sort of a thing. So often they did not have a childhood, and many of the rights were sort of not recognized. And once the children become more and more, that they need to accumulate knowledge, and their professions are going to be very different from other their family members, and the whole world became, acknowledging that children could be abused if they are not recognized of their rights, and which is what is happening throughout the world. The pendulum is swinging to the other side, and I don't think it has totally swung to the other side. It is somewhere in between. But there are so many other things which have focused this. Even if the world is not talking about the rights of the child, you have only 1 or 2 children, so you become child-centric, isn't it? For you, that person becomes the most precious person in your life. So it is also the trend, the epidemiology, the demographics, the wealth we are able to earn. Today, 2 generations back, we wouldn't have talked about, whether I can give my child to my money, because I wouldn't have any money at all to part with a child. Today, we are talking about children going on trips, children, getting the best sneakers, smartphones. Should I be giving my 10-year-old child a smartphone or an ordinary phone? All these things have made it into a child-centric world. So it is, why should we bring it back? I do not know how you will bring it back, unless, then we have the whole demographics, the economics, everything has to change. Then the law, the international law, and all the best if you are trying to change it.
How to view and deal with sibling rivalry?
Yeah, first is, I think to a certain extent, sibling rivalry will be there. Some children are very, very, sort of, they don't have any rivalry at all. The sibling rivalry, to a certain extent, has to be accepted. You just cannot take, when there is very severe sibling rivalry, you just have to be so, so conscious and aware that you cannot take sides. Often, it is better that you allow them to settle rather than you getting into it off and on, unless there is a lot of violence. And this is something which I again see a lot in our families. When I say our families, not only in the Indian family, because there is so much of violence in media these days. For example, let me tell you, this Tom and Jerry, one animation everybody shows their children that it is cartoon. It is so violent. The movies are so violent. The Superman and that, Spider-Man, Batman, everything talks about violence, competition, getting one over the other. All these things sort of gets into your brainwashes your children. And the children are able to pick up, what happens at home also. That you have a favorite son or a favorite daughter and things like that. And that's a sort of whether it is, and it is to a certain extent by the children themselves also. I'm not saying that it is all only parents making. Yes, to a certain extent, some children are more jealous and envious. And you know the story of Mahabharata, and did Duryodhan lack anything to be jealous of these Pandavas? He was by nature, he was very insecure. And so many a times it comes because you think that you are not given your due, and that is because of, to a certain extent, psychological terms I hate, because then parents stick on to that and then, sort of label it. So it would be over. That's what, if you're neutral at all times in your own mind and you're aware of it and show it also in your behavior, and you work on this along with your husband, I think then over years, it'll be, there are no quick fixes again. As I said, parenting is never about quick fix or magical solutions to anything. But rivalry is a very big issue, I know that.
Any other questions?
How do you
cope with extremely sensitive and highly emotional children today, both at home and in public?
And what do you mean by that? That your child throws a temper tantrum in the public? What is it? I'm not able to understand.
Can you just add to that?
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon. So, doctor, my question is that, for example, if the child is like emotionally very intense and extremely sensitive, even if you just kind of, frown at her or look at her, she tends to react in a very different manner. So how to deal with such, extremely sensitive situations, with the child, because the outside world is not like that for the child. So that was my question.
How does she deal with her with her teachers? What about other parent figures, teachers? And if you're sending her to some class, how does she deal with all those people? Is it only to you?
Yeah. So basically, if the teacher is friendly with her, motivating and supporting, then she's extremely faring well. Whereas if the teacher is a little curt, harsh, because each teacher has their own style of teaching. So if it happens in the second example, what I said, so she's trying to get into a cocoon and trying to hate the subject because of the teacher.
Have you sat, and if your child is a vocal child, have you had and sat with her, and then you need to sometimes, discuss these issues? And that's what I said. Are there places where your child can discuss issues without, saying that this is the conclusion, this is what should happen? Some children can be sensitive, but there is a need to sometimes, strengthen up also. And you can teach her some techniques also. She may sometimes think that, for example, we often tell children, sometimes you're very upset. What you need to do is say, excuse me, go into the bathroom, cry, have a good cry, and then come out and then behave as if nothing has happened. So if you can teach them techniques and strategies to deal with some of these things, and then you can, I do not know how old your child is, you can ask your child, sometimes people tell that you're very, very sensitive. So what do we do? There are times when people can be mean to you. So what happens when you are mean to people, when people are mean to you? Not only in the school, we are not talking about the school, we are talking generally. So what happens when somebody is mean? When you're walking along the road and somebody is mean, so what do you do then? So I think those are things, and then giving them opportunities to sort of, if that is, you think is because of her own, as I said, very, very, feeling very threatened by these things, then you have to involve her in activities which can make her feel less threatened. Anything which is physical, but that doesn't mean people who are all physical can be less insecure also. It's not so. But that can be one strategy, but strategies to deal with emotions is a very good thing, and we often tell them. You can bring back home, write it down, tear it, or punch. All these things, what we use for anger, can also, because in the end, what is it that we do in coping with emotion and stress? Knowing how you react whenever things are not going your way. When things are going your way, nobody talks about coping with emotions. Nobody talks about coping with happiness. Nobody talks about coping with joy. People always talk about coping with anger, coping with sorrow, coping with pain, coping with disappointments. And these are discussions, I think, which you as parents should have, not intensely. When you talk about other things, you might, if your child likes something, you will talk about something like that, and then you have you and your wife and your other child have some discussions regarding that, and then end it up with something which is totally different from this. And then this is something which you can do once in 10 days, because then it brings because it brings to her awareness that I cannot afford to be. And this has to be done. Anything which a child is learning as a skill needs to be done in multiple ways and multiple forums till they are able to have many a times. First of all, becoming aware is the first step. That I can become upset. I can cry when somebody is mean to me. So that's why I said that when you're in the play field, if somebody is mean to me, just go to the bathroom and then cry for some time and come back. So many a times you need to make the children and then not provide them solutions. What are the things which you can do? I am giving you a solution of crying and all those things. But if you ask your daughter, what is I'm sure your teacher must be mean to the other children also. What do they do? When she's strict, or, when she throws the notebook if you have not completed your mathematics, what does Shripriya do? What does Rahul do? Those are some of the things which you need to sort of, and not in an accusing manner, of course. At the same time, I do not know whether you have a single child. Single children are, the prince and the princesses of this world. I can tell you that much. They are the royalty of this world. They are very, very different. Skills. And many a times, the school also should have, even if your child is 8-year-old, they should have something which is suitable for that age. And if your daughter is 15-year-old, they should have something suitable. I can tell you again, parents, as I said, in the introduction, I have been doing life skills as a program, training the teachers for the past, from 1996, to be exact, May. But you would find in all these years, the most difficult group for me to convince that this is a program which needs to get into the school are the parents. And of course, next is teachers. First of all, parents, they say, why should we waste our time doing all these things? My child needs to know mathematics and computer science and all those things. And whenever we call them, I have now done work with more than 400 schools. When we call parents, they are very busy. So there is no way we can tell them anything. And we send them notice, it will come back and you say, please consent, go through it, understand it, come back. No. I've found that parents are very, very difficult to convince that they need something more than the 3 R's, academics. People, and that is the other thing, 3 hours. Many parents are now into hobbies and games because there's so much of competition on, India Talent, Sarigama, and this and that and everything. So every hobby the child is doing, if the child is put in a class, Sangeeta class or, a skating class, immediately they should go for competition. There is nothing which is just done for the joy of it. And the other thing which I see with parents is also that they have to look at every hour that they should see their child doing something. You cannot waste time. And nowadays, of course, children also don't waste time because they find it easier to either look into an iPad or to TV. There should be times in the whole family where today is a no gadget day. For the whole family, the father may be a CEO, maybe anything, but I think you should have a no gadget day, or you should have every day, you should have what is the last time somebody will use a gadget in the house. And study time, unless it is the school is sending you through the gadget, during the study time, better to do paper and pencil rather than gadget, according to me. But today things are very different because we use technology a lot to do everything, including this lecture. But I think gadgets, and below the age of 2, many parents I see when I go to their home or something, I see their children seeing TV. I am totally a person who thinks that child should not be exposed to TV or to iPad or to phone till they are 2 years old. And then slowly, one hour, and parents should supervise them. Because we give them, because we want them to be, behaving themselves, we give them. And when you get into a flight, and if there are young parents, the first thing they will all be getting out of their baggage before they sit down is an iPad for their children. I observe it because I observe generally people, this is what I observe. But at the same time, I know families where there is no TV, where there are no iPads. Because from day one, there have been, they will go to a movie. So I think it depends upon how you are brought up from a very young age. Screen time is a very, very difficult, addiction, and very, very difficult addiction. And all the, I'm happy that I don't have to parent anybody hereafter. It's a very tough period for parents here because everything comes inside you. You are not the control. It is what the children see is the control, actually. Screen time is a big, and that's why you have so many things which are online addiction, online addiction, online addiction.
Doctor, can we go to the next question? It says, given that no one person can be perfect and check off all the boxes in terms of parenting, what broad steps can be taken if the horse has left the stable? For example, will being open help, honesty help?
You just need to sit and then see what are the difficulties in your family, starting from your own relationship with your wife. So I know that nobody can be perfect. Even just because I'm giving this lecture doesn't mean that I'm a perfect parent. But I can work on that if I know where I'm doing wrong. If I do not, as I said, many of the communication I have seen is to win an argument, to prove that I am right. Often people do not want to discuss issues, even if the opinions differ. Okay, that is one thing. Your relationship, you mend it. Instead of saying that if my wife becomes all right, then I think if she will listen to me, she would, cooperate with me, everything would be all right. No. The couple need to change. And then if there are issues with your children, sit together, you and your wife or you and your husband, and see where are the things where we can make small changes. Small changes, because if you're going to revolutionize something, it will break in a family system. If you make small changes in the form of, we will go to bed after 8 o'clock, Amma and I or Appa and I will switch off our iPads or TVs and phones, And then we will sit and discuss for some time something. And then 9:30 we go to bed, and then we try and bring in some parental control, and the children are young, should be there, and we retire. And we have a system of, even if it is a Sunday, that I do not get up at 10 o'clock, but I get up at my usual time of 6 o'clock, go out. So what are the issues you need to, and anger, as I said, anger is a big issue and depends upon how the mother or the father. I've seen children telling their mother, when you break cups because you're so angry with Appa, I'm so scared. I know that you're not breaking anything important. It's only a cup, but I'm so scared to look at that because, you have so much of anger, not towards the cup. The cup is, after all, a, breakable thing. Anger towards the father or the father. Of course, if it is a father, in many of the things, nobody is, hitting. And the mother-in-law would say, oh, you have got only one slap. Or the mother, if you went to the mother would say, you had only one slap. Those days you used to get beaten up, no. So I think first the couple need to change, sit and at least 50% work out some of what is our daily routine? What is our weekly routine? As I said, hobbies, outings can be there. I'm saying that I do only active things with my child. I also go to supermarket. Everybody goes to supermarket. Everybody goes to movie. But it also needs to have something where you will play, where you will do things together, where you will draw together, where you will fold clothes together. Your children can bring in clothes every day and fold it up. That's a responsibility which you can give your child. Put the garbage bin outside every day, because every morning the van comes and collects garbage in all the localities. I know that. Child can put that out, and you should not be paying them money for that, because that is, that everything is a deal. That can come a bit later in life. But family work, I think we need to encourage. Nobody is perfect. I totally agree, sir. Whoever wrote that, who's that? Somebody has. Okay.
Okay, there is one more question, Doctor. What if both parents have slightly different parenting styles? Is it common situation? How should they view and deal with this difference? Both parents are different styles.
First of all, you know that your parenting style, are you aware of that? And you are saying that mine is the correct one. Because many a times that's what happens. Or right in front of the child. And that is something which we again learn. In the Indian family, what you do is, in the asymmetrical family, you know how the asymmetrical family is, how the hierarchy is. There will be the father, then there will be the child, then the mother will be there. That's our culture. I'm not saying that, I'm not talking about women's rights or anything like that. So in some families, it's the children, then the father, then the mother. So that also I have seen, where the children rule the roost. Okay, so the roles are reversed. So when we have different styles of parenting, so many a times it can be an advantage. It can be an advantage. If you know that your spouse is more easygoing and you're strict, okay, very difficult situations you can handle, push to that person. On smaller issues where you need to put a lot of, difficult issues, you can push there, and you tell the person also. I think often you talk well and they listen because you are easygoing. Why don't you talk about, whenever he's raising his hand, for various things, why don't you talk about that? If your husband is willing. And you can, set limits on some things which are quite strict, which are very clear that, okay, if you do not eat, there are no snacks in between. And this is for smaller children, I'm saying, because parents just cannot believe that their children will not eat during the lunchtime. And then constantly between the lunch and the dinner, there'll be multiple snacks and milk and everything will be there. And then they will complain that the child is not. Similarly, a school-going child will come back home, will go to bed, will get up at 7 o'clock, and then how will the child go to bed at 9:30 or 10? You need to take the child for a walk at that time, or do something, take the child cycling. Something you need to do. That's what is all parenting about. Come up with more and more ideas. That is creativity. That is creative skills.
And doctor, how can abusive language be controlled for a young adult going through anxiety?
Oh, I think that depends upon the family culture. Because many a times, all of us know bad language. Don't we know bad language? Do we use it? We don't use it. Okay. So if in some of the families, when there are teenagers, when they use it first, and I have seen this in many families when they are young, and when they are using something, a 6-year-old child or a 5-year-old doing, spitting or saying a bad word, everybody laughs. And that sort of, over the years, it sort of builds up. So, and if the parents are using bad language, then very difficult. And if the in-laws or anybody else in the family is using, but children also learn when they become to teenagers, and you have to make it very clear, not in this house. So you cannot say don't use it anywhere. At least you can say not in this house. That limit setting, if they are able to do that, that means they are able to bring in some control over their language. That control they will learn in the world because the hard way. That's all right. Sometimes children have to learn it the hard way. They cannot learn it any easier way. And we cannot protect them. Children need to go through difficulties and pain and stresses. We just cannot buttress them all the time.
Any more questions? It's been a wonderful session, doctor. Wonderful session.
Couples relationship is an anchor. What you do with your children on a daily basis actively is an anchor. Discipline to yourself is an anchor. That doesn't mean that it guarantees something in your child. Don't believe that. But these are models which your children can draw upon, if not today, sometime. That's what we always say. We believe that, we put up family planning ads everywhere in our country to control population, not because every married person who comes out of the wedding hall will look at it and say, oh my God, family planning. No. They will draw upon it when they need it. So if you provide them with the foundation, they will draw upon it when they need it. Believe in your children.
Doctor, I have one question, especially for the mothers. How to, because they are doing so many things, how to set time for themselves? See, the me time for the mother, downtime for the mother is very important. And many mothers neglect this. And it causes a lot of health problems in a mother. And by the time it becomes 10 o'clock in the night, the mothers just become a volcano. A smallest trigger is enough, and then she's erupting. And it also tells on the health of the mother. So how should mothers help themselves?
The mother has to give time to herself. Then the father should cooperate, isn't it?
Correct.
Before we ask the children to cooperate, the father should cooperate.
Right.
So the father should provide, saying that, okay, if not, as I said, I don't believe in revolutions. If the father can say, okay, Saturday, I'm at home. You go for a walk for an hour out. You go to the temple on your own for an hour and come back. I will hold the fort. You like massage. You go for an hour and come back. Or you are going for your music class. Go for your music class. If you want music class, go and start. Or join your group, bhajan group somewhere. The father should be able to say that, and the mother should say, now that you are at home on Saturdays, can you hold the fort for an hour when I go out and come back? So it's a communication, discussion, decision making. So these are all skills. So what we say, Be a good mother. Put your children into your front. They are your priorities. Nobody said that they are not our priorities. If I don't mother them, who will mother them? Nobody will mother them for me. I know they are my priorities, but we also need some. And many women, you know what happens? When they have this me time is looking at serials. That's the problem. That 1 hour, that's what the husbands will say immediately. எப்ப பார்த்தாலும் அந்த சீரியலை பார்த்துக்கிட்டே இருக்க, இது என்னது இது? ஏதாவது உருப்படியா பண்றியா வீட்டுல இருக்கிறப்ப? That's what they will say. So the me time, you know why it is not a me time? It constantly feeds into your thoughts and your emotions and things like that. It is borrowed. And it is not the best of the, me time. If you're saying that, yes, one day in a week, I will sit for about 1 hour, 2 hours, and I will watch a movie of mine, whether it is violence or whatever it is, I will watch it. It's fine. To watch it every day where the mother-in-law is complaining about the daughter-in-law, the husband is having an affair. So those are values again. It is not only how your father, a child's father, or somebody else may not be having, an affair. But your mother constantly looking at serials where there are, affairs by the men becomes a norm in virtuality. That's what your child sees. You watching, movies serials where the man is, all men are, according to me, I don't see serials. Whenever I put it on, men are having another affair or people are not trusting them. The mistrust and the lack of respect and acceptance and honesty is so lacking in our serials that we should not be watching them. But these are the things which go on for years together, which is so sorry. Who benefits out of it? The producer and everybody else. I do not know. I think sometimes, I feel very sorry because women have to rise above that, according to me.
You're right. You're right, doctor.
Use it. There is a passive hobby. Good. You can have passive hobbies of movies and things are done to you. You go to supermarket, you do window shopping, go to Kumaran's sale. All those things are fine. They are all passive things. Actively, when you can do something. That is what is active, and that is what I see Dr. Vivekananda's talk last time. He has talked about dopamine and serotonin.
Right.
If you want dopamine, do passive hobbies, passive leisure activities. If you want your own high, which is good, and you feel at the end of it, oh, good, it was so good, then that is serotonin, endorphin. You have to do something.
Thank you, doctor. I have tried to give responsibilities to my 16-year-old kid, like cleaning her own room or bathroom, folding clothes, but she doesn't do it until I remind her 5 to 6 times, and that too it is not completed. I try not to shout and get angry. How do I deal with this?
Yeah, you are dealing with that very well, whoever it is. Okay, so you are dealing with that very well. You have given her the responsibility and you are reminding her. If she needs 20 reminders, you have to do it. That's part of your parenting day. The day you became a parent, you are responsible for all these things. That's all right. Don't get upset with her. Remind her. She will thank you when she goes and starts living on her own or gets married or has her own children. She will thank you immensely for that. But no other shortcut. But you are doing well. You have given these responsibilities, and I hope you started it when she was 6 and not when she became 60.
Okay.
You have to remind. You have to, even ourselves, many a times, to fold the clothes, we have to remind ourselves, my God, 3 days clothes are lying here, better I fold it. We have to remind ourselves. So naturally, a 16-year-old, how else do you expect? But do it every day.
As a parent, we teach kids morals and we tell them you have to be good, you have to share, no lying, be nice to people, but not always are others nice to them. Sometimes being nice to people people tend to take advantage. How to teach kids to stand for themselves?
Assertive skills is a life skill. Being assertive, and I think parents have difficulty in many a times. I always tell people, again, assertion is a way of communication. When you talk about, this is slightly for older children, okay, teenagers, we do that. When you talk about your rights without hurting the other person, then you are assertive. When you don't, when somebody is even hurting you, you know it is not correct and things like that, and you just go along that, actually you're being passive. And when you say that the other person has no rights at all, the bully is aggressive, you are either passive, but there can be an assertion. Assertion, it doesn't mean, because many people think that being assertive is aggression. No. Hitting back is, walking away is the best sometimes. And sometimes when the person is able to understand, then, so you need to teach children how to be assertive. And I can tell you something, just because somebody is very passive, your child, is very quiet, that doesn't mean the child is not aggressive. Many a times parents think that a soft-spoken person is not aggressive. A very soft-spoken person can be very aggressive in what they say, how they say. So all these things count important. Suppose somebody is trying to show something, you have done something and that person is something and you are saying yours is the best, and the other person is saying that, trying to draw your attention to what they have done. That itself, starting from there, I'm not saying that we should, microscopically look at every action of ours. But what I'm trying to say is, just because somebody is very soft-spoken doesn't mean that they are not aggressive. They can be very aggressive. And I find some of the world leaders who have been very, very aggressive are very soft-spoken. Assertive skills are very much needed among children. Yes, when somebody is a bully, so you need to teach them, what would you do? What do other people do? What do your friends do? What is the school saying about all these things? So these are all important. When you have to, it takes a village to bring up a child. That's what, what Clinton. What is that Clinton's hat? What is her name? Mrs. Clinton.
Hillary
Clinton said, okay, it takes a child to bring up, it takes a village to bring up a child to, So when that is so many of these things, whenever we talk about skills, it is not only the parents, the family system, the educational system, the educational forum, and the policies all need to change. Just putting the pressure only on children is not possible. If the child is in, see, sometimes it depends upon the child also. Not all children are able to go through all difficulties wonderfully. When there is a tsunami or when there is a war, most of the children are able to deal with that. But some children just are so fragile that they just crumble with that sort of a stress. And those are the children, they may need more support and other things. So I think a lot of systems, and what is it that can I now go and change the school system or the education system or management, any of those things? No. The only thing I think I can change in this forum is change your family system. If it is functioning very well, well and good, continue that. If it is not functioning well, look inwards. Look into your home. Try to see, where can I take help? Your first help is not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, your own spouse. That's the first step for some of the things, and have daily routines, weekly routines that are interactive, sidewards, next generation. See some serials together with them. They are fun. Some serials are really fun and they can be fun. You can see them with them. No problem. But it should also be interspersed with something else where you are able to do together without, 2 or 3 of you are able to do together. even if it is just cutting vegetables or cleaning, the car, cleaning the scooter. Your child is cleaning his own scooter or bicycle and you're cleaning your own things. It is all, but all of you are doing something in the same place and then talking with each other.
Can you take one more, doctor?
Mm-hmm.
So
and that will be last. Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be the last question then. So it is, I believe this happens between 7-year-olds, this conflict Jin spoke about. One child bullies the others. It's like me first, my child comes home crying and then goes back to that same child in school.
They will settle a lot of those things. I think you just have to allow, because they know how to deal with them. If your child is, that means something is attracting that child to the other child, because there is a benefit for your child to be with that child. So you need to understand why the child is seeking the other child, because there is some benefit emotionally, something. So you can ask, you complain, but you go back. Why is it that you do that? The child may be able to say that, why the child goes back. So, yeah, sometimes, they form very good relationship. It may be beyond what you are seeing. Because it may be a good relationship in other areas, but only when the child comes home crying that you see that. There may be good times they are having in play, in studies, in sharing. But when it becomes a cry, then probably you are seeing it, because the child cries and is not reporting the other good times. I think you need to sort of go into that much more. Does it happen with only this child, or is my child generally, as somebody said, she's very sensitive and gets bullied very easily? Is that my child's personality, or is it something more? Only with this child these things are happening, but otherwise they seem to get along very well. So you need to sort of look at it. The same thing applies even to siblings. Sometimes they will fight, but are they able to at least 30% of the time do something together? Then it's fine. Sometimes you have to let go and ask them to settle their own fights, because unless it is violent, of course, somebody taking a cricket bat and hitting something else you cannot allow. But other things, I think you should use your judgment. What if a child nags for everything he wants every day? What do you mean? You can tell them, these are simple things. You can tell them, okay, you have told me once. Hereafter, whenever you ask something for more than 3 times, then it will come only then. Today is Tuesday and it will come on Wednesday or Thursday. And you can tell him, once you have asked, go and put a mark on the calendar. How old is your child? If your child is 8 years old, and if the child nags, you can say, you can ask 3 times. Today is Tuesday. You can ask 3 times for lollipop. So one time you have asked, I have told you I will get you on Thursday. So once you have asked, you go and put 1 mark. 2 times you have asked, more than 3 times, it will come on Friday, not Thursday. They can monitor a lot of these behavior, because when you say that, can you do that? You can go and mark that. Many of the schools do this star chart. If you are behaving very well, star chart. So we do this a lot with children, that they themselves can go and mark on it. Nagging, and very many parents just give in to nagging. I know a lot of children, 2-year-old children will throw temper tantrums, will cry for 5 minutes and they will get the extra biscuit. Next day, they will cry for 10 minutes and they will get that extra 2 biscuits. And the next day, they will cry for 20 minutes. If you have I always tell people, if you know that you cannot win the battle, don't start a war. The war should not be started if you cannot win it. Sometimes you should give in to pretend as if we are losing the war, to have an upper hand. That's what is all diplomacy is about, isn't it, these days? But if you know that it is of great importance and you are going to lose, don't start that battle with your children, even with your husband or wife. That's war technique.
So we will close the forum for more questions. I can actually just do a closing slide so that people will know what it is. And then I want to thank the doctor.
Sure.
Because this session was, it actually has led itself very well from what happened. It's dovetailed into from what we did to what we did today.
Sure.
So yeah, can you just move the slide? Move it. Right, and we just want to let you know that this is a collaboration between Gold Parent Support Group and ACRES Foundation. For those who don't know what Gold is stands for Gift of Learning Differently. It's a support group for parents of children with learning differences, and anybody who wants to join this group can please email us at goldpsg2020@gmail.com. And ACRES Foundation is a not-for-profit organization which is working on the vision of education for the head, heart, and hands. So you have head, heart, and hands. So you need all three to be functional and well productive human beings. And they work with children, teachers, and school leaders and school system at large. You can contact them at 98436 and 61177, or you can email them at goodpreet@acresfoundation.org. And all our sessions are recorded, and you can find them on our YouTube channel. So you can log in, you can subscribe to our channel, and all these are free. And I hope you will share them with many parents who will benefit from these sessions. And thank you so much, Doctor, for your time today and for having a very, very wonderful, not only wonderful and eye-opening session, but I think it's dovetailed into a very comprehensive session, because we had something on gadget addiction last time, and it's come into parenting today, and it's gone hand in hand very well. Thank you very much for giving us your time. Thank you, Doctor.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting. Thank you, parents, for being there.